They used to gather 'neath stars in the meadow, circled near an old oak tree at the times appointed by the seasons of the earth and the phases of the moon. In the center often stood a woman, equal with the others and respected for her worth. One of the many we call the witches, the healers and the teachers of the wisdom of the earth. The people grew through the knowledge she gave them, herbs to heal their bodies, spells to make their spirits whole. Hear them chanting, healing incantations, calling forth the wise ones, celebrating in dance and song. Isis is started Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 There were those who came to power through domination, and they bonded in the worship of a dead man on a cross. They sought control of the common people by demanding allegiance to the Church of Rome. Then the Pope declared the Inquisition. It was a war against the women whose powers he had feared. In this Holocaust against the nature people, 9 million European women died. And the tale is told of those who, by the hundreds, holding together, chose their death in the sea while chanting the praises of the mother goddess of refusal, of betrayal. Women would die to be free. Isis started Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 Now the earth is
Good morning. I'm Katrinka Ford, member of the Board of Trustees of the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. We are committed to becoming a community where everyone is welcome and differences are celebrated, whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in your journey, we bid you welcome. If you are new here, we invite you to fill out a Newcomer Connect card online. You can use the QR card on the pamphlets in the seat backs in front of you, or the link on our website. Or you can leave your contact information at the greeting table on your way to Venti Hall. This helps us find you and helps us connect you with more opportunities in our community. So welcome, so glad you're here. The land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land and the ancestral people of this land, the Lishan-Ohlone people. Our church, institutions, and homes are occupying their ancient land. We acknowledge that the lands were stolen from the Ohlone peoples who for millennia had an ancestral relationship with this land, the plants, the animals, the water, continuous to the present day. Ohlone people are still here. We also recognize the spirits of the Ohlone ancestors are present. We understand that we are not the ones who stole the land, but we benefit from it. One of the ways we can help right this wrong is by promoting the Shumi land tax, which gives money to the Sigourney Land Trust to buy back some of their land. We encourage you to learn more about the confederated villages of the Lishan-Ohlone peoples. And now I have a few announcements. Today is the last day for the UU Oakland Side with Love online store. These items, this is where you can get your t-shirts and your sweatshirts and your hats that say Side with Love so that you can find other UU Oakland and other UUs from other parts of the state when you show up at rallies and protests. The link is in the Chalice Chatter, or see Marilyn Schumacher. Marilyn, are you here? See Marilyn Schumacher, and she can help you out. This Saturday is the intergenerational All Out Against ICE in Dublin March and Rally. There will be sign making in Venti Hall during coffee hour. Talk to the justice team about carpooling. We are having an all-church mini retreat on Sunday, July 27th. It'll start after the service and the monthly potluck. Please mark your calendars. And we have a new bulletin board, thanks to Dave Rudy. These and other announcements can be found on the bulletin board, which is currently in the narthex and will move to Venti Hall for coffee hour.
Good morning. We light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all of creation, the power of love to heal what is broken, and to be grateful for life's blessings each day.
I hope that little bit of ineptitude will not prejudice you against the rest of the service. For our peace candle today, we have some words from Ella Fitzgerald. She's inspiring in many ways, has been inspiring. But she said, "Just don't give up what you're trying to do. where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong. In one voice, let's say, peace is possible. Hear from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. Together we say, Black Lives Matter.
Please join us in our opening hymn, Gathered Here, and please feel free to stand as you are willing and able.
When Rev Susan Conrad, told me that she was going to talk about a source of wisdom in the ancient story of Inanna, I had to study up on the story. I'd heard about Inanna, but I really didn't know much more than that, or certainly not about her descent into the underworld. Rev Susan will describe this amazing story. One thing that captured my imagination was the question, how do we know about this story that's 4,000 years old and written in languages no one speaks anymore? I remembered my eye-opening visit to the British Museum where I saw the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone, as you might know, is an ancient carving with the same thing written in 3 languages. That enabled the Frenchman Champollion to figure out how Egyptian hieroglyphics worked and what they meant, which is something people had been trying to figure out for hundreds of years. The stone was carved in 3 different languages, one of which was ancient Greek. The other 2 were hieroglyphic and Demotic, Demotic being a form of Greek that no one speaks anymore. Scholars already knew how to translate ancient Greek, and that was the key. They could compare it to the hieroglyphics in order to help understand them. But it wasn't a matter of, oh, now we know what it all means. It took 20 years to figure it out. I'm struck with how many people were involved in this project that opened up the history of ancient Egypt. The stone was discovered by French soldiers when Napoleon invaded Egypt. And then it was taken to France, as were so many things hauled off to Europe by conquerors. Then there were linguists who had learned ancient languages and set about figuring out what was going on in the Rosetta Stone, which turned out to be a governmental decree full of propaganda about how great Ptolemy V was. Also in the British Museum were thousands of fragments collected by archaeologists over many years of carefully sifting the soil, and these have allowed us to know a lot about other ancient civilizations, such as the Assyrians. If you've ever seen a documentary about archaeology, you can remember how workers swarm over the sites, carefully digging and brushing the dust off every little thing they found, measuring and recording them. So what about Inanna's story? How did it come to exist for us? Do we have a slide here? Also in the British Museum, there's a clay tablet version of the story from the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh from the 7th century BC, although the story was 1,000 years older than that. Early 20th century scholars painstakingly pieced the text together from many tablet fragments unearthed in Nippur. Arno Pobel and Stephen Langdon did the initial reconstruction with these small text fragments and the upper half of the 4-column tablets preserved in the Istanbul Archaeological Museum, and that's what you're seeing the picture of. But so much was missing that they couldn't reconstruct the narrative. Then archaeologist Edward Chiera found a second portion of the Istanbul tablet at the University of Pennsylvania and published a complete translation in 1936. A 1942 discovery at Yale University of a 94-line tablet revealed a big shift in the narrative, which I won't spoil. The Sumerian version was published in the 1950s. Then in 1963, a 74-line tablet was discovered at the ancient site of Ur. That was where Abraham was from. And this fragment was translated and produced a more complete English version in 1974. Not very long ago. I'm in awe when I think of how many people hours, dedication to learning, and sheer patience it's taken so that we can have some understanding of ancient cultures. This is what research is. I contrast it with the current disdain and insult to education and scholarship, the cutting of funds to research as a waste of taxpayers' money, the diminishing support for the humanities and science. How much of the universe and of our planet will remain unknown mysteries to us because of this? It seems a tragedy to me, who has had so much pleasure in finding out what took thousands of minds and thousands of hours to bring forward so we could know our history. Inanna descends into hell. Maybe this disinterest and dissing of scholarship and research is part of our own descent into hell. May there be resurrection in attitudes toward research. May those who study and search and stay with it over many years be celebrated. And now, please greet one another, and when you hear the sound of the bell, go back to your seats.
I invite you to return to your seats, and we will join in singing our next hymn. I invite us all to join in singing our next hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Can you feel it? Yes.
Inanna Speaks by Molly Reamer. Inanna speaks. She says it's time to step into the heart of mystery, to set foot on the path of wild wisdom, to journey to the very depths of your core. And once you have descended deep into the underworld, into the place where pain and power meet in the crucible of your life, once you are laid bare, stripped raw, and shaking in your bones, you will discover there is nothing left to fear. There is nothing left to do. There is no one left to please. You will taste this freedom in the salt of blood and the sweetness of wild berries, and then you will turn naked, unapologetic, and unafraid. Put your feet upon the path, perhaps still unknown, but unfolding before you, and you will ascend through the layers of that which you no longer need, through the roles that you no longer inhabit, through the wants that you no longer fulfill. You will reclaim your power. You will accept your cape of mystery, and you will emerge from the underworld with something fierce blazing in your eyes, and in the set of your shoulders and the swirl of your hips, there is something that can no longer be denied. You will emerge whole.
Good morning once again, dear ones. And as those words sink into our bones and our being, those beautiful words that Corliss shared with us today, in this moment, let us take a moment to breathe, to ground ourselves into our shared humanity and our particular humanity at this time, taking in the breath of life that we also wish and pray for every being in this world to have that breath, to have that possibility of each new breath. When we gather together, we are reminded that all life is one, indivisible. All life is one. We honor our connected web, our interconnected web, feeling into the core of our very being. Feeling with each breath our own dignity, the space we get to take up in this world. We feel tendrils reaching down into the dark, beautiful, rich, mysterious earth, and tendrils reaching up to the dark and beautiful, mysterious cosmos, connecting with all other beings who share breath. And at this time, we open a space for all who wish to share, either in your heart or out loud, the names of persons, conditions, needs that we must today honor, remember, and hold in our care. And embracing meditation. We hold them in our care. Well, folks, we're going to go on a journey. Corliss gave you a little hint of where we're headed today. And I so appreciate your beautiful reflections, Corliss. So I'd like to take us back. I'd like to invite us to engage our imaginations today. And we'll ask for the support of the drum a little bit here today. But we're going to go back in time, back long before even the Abrahamic traditions, back in time before the internet. I know, is it possible? Yeah. Way back. We're going to go way back. And before I share this retelling of the myth of the Descent of Inanna, I want to give thanks to one of my spiritual teachers, Starhawk, who has inspired this telling, and she has been a great inspiration to me. So may this telling of this myth be of benefit to whoever may take something from it. So I invite us to go back in time. I invite us to use our imaginations to imagine what it may have been like in ancient Sumer, thousands of years ago, when the storyteller gathered the people around and said, "Let me tell you of the story of Inanna and when she went to the depths." And the people would know Inanna, of course, because Inanna was perhaps one of the most important gods in the pantheon in those days, and the ziggurats had her temples. And the area that we speak of, ancient Sumer, is today known as Iraq, in the beautiful fertile crescents between the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. And at this time in ancient history, this region was lush with beautiful palms giving date palms everywhere. There would have been settlements with a complex society. There would have been abundance in the storehouses of grain, of crops. There would have been goats and sheep and canals with life-giving water from the Euphrates. So as we gather to hear the words of the storyteller, we might imagine that we are feeling those cool breezes from those canals. We might imagine that we smell that beautiful sweetness from those date palms. And we begin. And the storyteller says, "There was a time when Inanna, the great goddess who stores all the grain, the goddess of the storehouse, the goddess of sexual love, the goddess of beauty, the goddess of political stability, this great goddess, she turned her ear to the great below. She opened her ear to the great below, and the great below called her forth. And Inanna called to her own dearest friend and comrade, Ninshibur. She said, 'Ninshibur, I am hearing a call to the great below. I must go and see my sister, Ereshkigal. I must go and see my sister, queen of the underworld, and I need your help. I need a lifeline up here in the above ground. I need your help.' And Ninshibur, who was a loyal comrade, she was a little concerned about this, but she said, 'Okay, yeah, what do you got for me?' And Inanna said, 'I need you to know that if I don't return after 3 days and 3 nights, I need help. I need you to go to the gods and goddesses and say, get me out of that underworld.' And Ninshibur said, 'Okay, you got it.' Thinking, I don't know how the heck I'm going to do this, but she said yes. She was as close to Inanna as her own sister. And so Inanna withdrew her energy from the temples, from the storehouses of grain, and she started to go down. She started to go down to the underworld, into the depths, and she approached the first gate of the underworld, and there was a guard right there, and the guard said, 'Stop! Who are you, and what do you think you're doing? You belong in the above ground.' And Inanna said, 'But I am the sister of Ereshkigal, the great goddess of the underworld, and I must see her.' And the guard at the gate said, 'Well, you know, don't you, that our world is not your world. Your rules don't apply. All that fancy political stuff you've been doing up there, it doesn't apply down here.' And she said, 'Yes, I know.' And so the guard said, 'Well, okay, then on one condition you may pass through this gate. You must give up something of value that is on your person.' Now, Inanna had prepared for this journey. She had put on her beautiful crown. She had put on her beautiful lapis lazuli breastplate. She had put on her great girdle that said, "Come, man, come." Yes, that's actually in the myth. She had her beautiful golden bangles and her cape. So she said, "All right, you can take these golden bangles. I'll leave those with you." And she did. And at each gate to the underworld, and there were 7 gates, she was forced to leave something of material value, something that signified her royalty. Gone was her beautiful crown, and gone was her jewel-encrusted breastplate, and gone was her girdle that said, "Come, man, come," and gone was her great robe. And at the seventh gate, she stood naked before the guard at the 7th gate. And she couldn't go back now, so that gate opened. And sure enough, her sister Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, was waiting. And there she was on her throne, like a mighty spider in her web. And Sister Ereshkigal was on her throne, and she said to Inanna, "What are you doing here, and why have you come?" And Inanna said, "I heard that you are grieving the loss of your husband. I heard the cries, and I'm here." But Sister Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, she was no fool. And she took her eye of truth and she looked at Inanna, and it went right through her. And then Ereshkigal struck her down. And Inanna, who once had been this great goddess in the world above, she was on the floor. She was on the ground. And Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, said, "Okay, I'm going to consult. You have come here. I'm going to consult with my judges here in the underworld, and they will determine your fate." So what do you think happened? Those judges consulted, and they conferred, and they reached a verdict, and they said, "Guilty." And they took Inanna's body and they put it on a hook on the wall, and the life began to draw out of her body. Pretty tough, right? But above ground, things were happening. Ninshibur, the loyal friend and comrade of Inanna, had sprung into action. It had been 3 days and 3 nights. She went to the gods and said, "I am deeply concerned. Inanna is not here, and the storehouses are running low, and the canals are drying up. What can we do without Inanna? We are stuck. Plus, she's my dear comrade." And one after one, the gods said, "We can't help. We can't help. She has done this reckless thing. We don't even know why she's doing this. We can't help." So at her wit's end, Ninshibur said, "I have one last ace in the hole. I think he's going to help. I hope so." She went to Enki. And Enki was the aged grandfather, Inanna's grandfather, king, or rather I should say God of the waters, God of the falling waters, God of the springs coming up through the deep ground. Enki also was the god of wisdom. And Enki said, "Yes, I will help." Enki would help. And Enki took his wizened hands, his hands that had done so much, had created so much, had brought the waters to this place of antiquity, and he rubbed his aged hands together. And you know what he did? He took the dirt from under his fingernails and started to roll it between his hands, his fingers. Ninshipur looked on in awe what was happening, but slowly and surely, 2 little balls of dirt came alive and poof, they went flying around Enki's head. They sprouted wings. They were about the size of a fly. These gender-fluid beings were flying around him, and he gave them instruction. That's right, these gender-fluid beings, no larger than a fly. And he said, okay, my beings, you're going to go down into the underworld, and you're going to see the queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal, and she is going to be moaning in pain, and you are going to help her. And she is going to say, she will grant you a wish, and you are going to ask for Inanna back. And so they did, these little gender-fluid beings that were created out of dirt from Enki's fingernails. They zipped through that first gate. They zipped through the second gate. Zip, zip, zip until the 7th gate. And don't you know, the guard didn't even notice. He went under his radar, and those 2 little gender-fluid beings, no bigger than a fly, that Enki had created out of the dirt of his fingernails, they were face to face with Ereshkigal. And she was there in her web, like a spider, but a little less fearsome now. And she was moaning, and she was rocking back and forth, and she said, oh, oh, my insides, and oh, my outsides. And she was groaning as if giving birth. And you know what those little gender-fluid beings did? They said, oh, queen, your insides, and oh, your outsides, oh, your insides, oh, your outsides. And they groaned with her until she felt some measure of ease, that her pain had diminished, and she said, thank you, beings. I have not felt this, but I am in less pain because of you. What can I do for you? What wish can I grant you? Can I grant you abundance of grain? Can I grant you abundance of water? And the little being said, no, queen, we can't ask for that. All we wish for is that lifeless corpse that hangs on the wall. And she said, sure, go for it. And they did. And you know what? When Enki had given these beings life, he also gave them a little vial which contained the food of life and the water of life. The food of life and the water of life, the food of life and the water of life. Pour it out for me, pour it out for me. Anything you send me, I will drink. And they did. And they poured out the water of life for Inanna, and they poured out the food of life for Inanna, and Inanna started to breathe again, and she breathed again, and her face came alive. And don't you know it, she found strength again in her limbs. And then they got the heck out of there. And they went up through the gates. They went up through the 7th gate and the 6th gate. They were running from the demons all the way up to the world above, where the sun was shining. And the storehouses became full again. And the water was flowing. And that began the cycle of the seasons and the rotation of the fallow time and the time of abundance. And so as our story ends for now, we might imagine coming above ground and once again smelling the sweetness of the date palms, the breeze from the canals, and coming back into our own time, here and now, maybe wiggling our feet, maybe taking a breath to ground us, and seeing if there's anything from this tale that resonates for you. Maybe you know what it's like to go through the cracks of the system to get what you need, Maybe you know what it's like to seek out the food of life and the water of life in unlikely places. Maybe you know what it's like to collaborate to solve these intractable problems. May we all learn to dig deep and to find allies as we go forth to become whole and to bring abundance to all life once again. May it be so. Thank you.
But what about the part where she has to send somebody back in her place?
There's that, yes.
A twist in the story that comes later. I'm deep into the story. One of the joys of this church for me is this building and the connection it gives me to Oakland's past. My father was in the Air Force, which meant we moved frequently and were never really part of either an extended family nor a community. So it gives me real pleasure to be active in one of the oldest organizations in one of the oldest buildings in Oakland. Belonging to this community also puts me and you in a new minority, those who belong to a community organization. People used to belong to civic organizations, but not anymore, much less now than previously. It's pretty astounding how much community participation has declined. It's part of the increasing and very worrisome isolation of private life that leads to so much loneliness. Please help to celebrate the existence of our congregation, our building, and our community by giving as generously as you can when the basket comes your way. If this is your first time here, though, just let the basket go by. Your presence is already a gift to us. Will the ushers please come forward?
to the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves and these our offerings. Perfect timing. I invite you, as you are willing to face each other across the aisle, to see in the faces of one another the food of life and the water of life that is alive, the abundance of each being in this place. Ancient Mother and all wise wisdom goddesses and their allies, we ask that you join us whenever we need to go someplace that we may be afraid to go, but where we must go. We ask that you join us as we pour out the water of life and give the food of life to ourselves and to all beings, that all life would be abundant and flourish once again. Thank you all so much. May it be so. Go and flourish. Blessed be, so mote it be. Thank you so much. Hey, you. I'm good. And so good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
In the cold of the evening, they used to gather 'neath the stars in the meadow, circled near an old oak tree. At the times appointed by the sea,